Ohio, what's up, everybody? This is episode 138 of the Omnic Lab, a podcast about the strategies in the game of Overwatch. We're here to learn, just like lab-like format, scientific method style. We're going to be walking you through, this week, advanced game sense, as much as we possibly can without an expert. We are going to be doing this from all of our experiences and talking with lots of pro players and things that we've picked up across our time in the game. And this week, Andres is back. Welcome back, Andres.
What's up? What's up? It's good to be back. It feels like forever since I was like last year, even though it's only been like 1 week.
You got like 2 weeks worth of strategy that you just dumped in the show notes this morning.
I came back recharged. I'm ready.
Yeah, of course. So what we're going to be doing this week, guys, is we're going to be trying to do our best to help transition you from one realm to the next with regards to, I guess, game sense or things about the game to give you like your sensory things with like sound and sight and vision and positioning and understanding how the game is working and operating. That's kind of what we're going to be covering today in more of a macro and micro sense. But the big thing that we're trying to kind of give as a big disclaimer is we're going to run through some basics here in a little bit before we get there. And all of those basics are things that we are making as assumptions at a baseline. You're competent in those. So if you're looking for more of a basic game sense, I think we did a broad brush basic game sense episode a few months back. You can check that in the archives. And I will do my best to try to find it and put a link in the bottom of the show notes for you. Maybe in the description if I can find it that fast. Okay. So Andres, welcome back. How was? I'm sure people are dying to know how your final project went.
It's going good. We haven't had a chance to present it. I've been basically just working on it for this past 2 weeks. We're doing like some machine learning for the last final project. We didn't go too deep into it because machine learning, obviously, it's a very vast and deep subject. And we only had a couple of weeks to really kind of learn about it and then get your hands on it. Fortunately, there's a lot of pre-made stuff out there that you can play with and kind of get your hands dirty with. So that's kind of what we've been playing. Our application that we worked on can take in a picture of a skin cancer, basically, and can tell you which type it is, whether it's like melanoma or a benign cyst or anything like that. I would definitely not recommend it as a replacement for the doctor. It's very basic and bare bones. You can feed it other images that are not about the skin, and it still categorizes it as skin cancer. So it's
Oh, jeez.
it's not the most usable thing. But that being said, it does categorize some of the images that we feed it correctly. So it's been a pretty cool learning experience, getting your hands on a little bit of machine learning and putting into application, so lots of things learned,
Cool.
But that's what I was been doing for my final project.
Awesome. I've been playing Apex Legends this last weekend and in a tournament. And Andres and I, as you probably have heard from us when we talk about stuff, anytime a battle royale comes up, we're just like, I don't know, man, this doesn't seem like that good. And we're really reticent to like get into it. And I don't think besides, was it Realm Royale? Was the only other one that I actually decently enjoyed on the outset. And then they kind of like put it in a position where I just didn't want to play it anymore. But like this one's really, really fun. It scratches that Halo itch that I've had for a while. And like puts a couple different things in the game, more team-based combat, 3v3. It's very Overwatch-esque, and it feels really, really good. So we've been playing that a little bit.
Yeah, it's an interesting game, to be honest. It came out of nowhere. I remember when I first heard about it, it was from my friend. It was like, yeah, this new Battle Royale game. And I was immediately like, not interested. I've seen way too many Battle Royales coming out this year. but then he kind of like messing about it, and he had it in his computer. So I tried it out, and I actually had a lot of fun playing it. It's like what you said. It's a mixture of like Halo and Destiny and Overwatch and Realm Royale and no, not Realm Royale, but
Or
Fortnite.
Fortnite or
Yeah, it has like a little bit of every one of those, but it feels really good. And like I wouldn't think that I would enjoy a battle royale so much, but I
and
think
it's
I'll be
got the
playing a little bit
Titanfall
more of it.
universe, so
Yeah,
they carbon copied all the guns from Titanfall. So if you, I
yeah,
mean,
and the
got
skins
that
and the
kind of itch.
characters feel cool. I like the whole concept they got going on.
It's very new, so it's got a lot of bugs in it, and it is free to play. So if you guys want to check it out, might as well
I mean, yeah,
give it a
that's
try.
the other
Let us know
thing.
what
It's
you
free to
think.
play, so there's really nothing to lose.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. So let's get into a couple other announcements here as we keep going. Game night. Game night is on the last Friday of February, the 22nd of February. We will be doing it then. I have no updates from me as if I will be able to make this one just yet. My work schedule is going to be a little nutty around this time of year. This is when my third year is getting ready to graduate from high school, so might be pretty busy. Also, my in-laws are going to be coming in next month and some other cool stuff. So we're gonna kind of have a really interesting spring season coming up. But we also have Top Score Solutions is back with a sponsored spot saying that they are an esports oriented community offering business education and for business education and analytics. You can use developing businesses, services, orgs, or creating content about gaming and esports. They're here to help you guys. They have a flagship podcast called Esports Business Pod. You can check that out. If you want to go find them, they're on Podbean and iTunes. Additionally, their website, topscoresolutions.com, has an, in case you missed it, brief news update, kind of weekly or sometimes daily, depending on how active they're going to be in the news cycle that week. So check out their Discord community, and just remember, all the links of everything is on their website. Just go to topscoresolutions.com. Andres, why don't you give Shazir's plug here?
Absolutely. Shazir, a fellow Omnic and also part of our community for a long time, says, "Hey, fellow scientists, one of our patrons, Shazir, is working to staff out a new Scrum team in downtown Minneapolis, Minnesota, and is looking to hire a mid-senior software quality assurance engineer. If you need a quality engineer background, if you have a quality engineer background that includes white box and black box testing, as well as creating test automation using tools built in the .NET and Selenium, as well as work in using networking tools like Fiddler, JMeter, and Postman, he'd love to work with you. He's looking for fellow Omnic Labians because he knows that we are a pretty cool community. He's met other people in the community, and they know that we're pretty tech oriented sometimes here in the Discord. So if you have a background in all the stuff we just mentioned, make sure to reach out to him. You can reach out to us in the Discord or him himself. You can find him there. But if you don't want to or you don't know how to connect with them, you can reach out to us through email or on the Discord, like I said, and we'll happily get you in touch with the man.
We also have Omnic Meta, as was on the episode last week with PS4 legend CS talking about his new Reaper guide and Reaper stats on his website, Omnic Meta. You can check out at omnicmeta.com. And our Humble Bundle monthly affiliate link is always available with the exclamation point Humble or exclamation point Bundle link in our chats and Discord. Mr. Mars, thank you for the 2-month Twitch Prime sub. Big thank you to that. You can also support us on Twitch Prime because we're affiliates there. But let's get into improving game sense overall, and we're going to jump right into the basics of what we think is your baseline of understanding to get to the first big block of progression with regards to game sense. Andres, take it away.
Alrighty. Let's go through some basics before we get into all of this. I do think that the basics themselves are plenty of work. And if you're just starting out the game, I'd much rather you recommend focus on these things we're about to talk about rather than about the fancier things that we're going to talk about in the end. But having that said, these are almost like a requirement for the things that we are going to talk about because it's kind of like the foundation to building your gameplay, improving as a player, and actually bringing out the good plays in you. It's almost like bringing out the potential that you have. So I want to go through these with you, Rob, before we get into the rest. These are pretty important, like we said, But the first one I want to talk about is knowing all of the abilities and their relative cooldowns. And when I say all of the abilities, I mean all of the abilities, every single one of them, of every hero, all three: ultimate, shift, and E. And if they have like a secondary ability or anything, learn that too. And learn their relative cooldowns. And by relative, I mean you don't have to know the exact numbers, but you do need to develop a feel for how long they take to recharge during the battle. So I, for example, don't know like every single ability cooldown number, but I do have a feel like, okay, when Anna throws her grenade, I have about like 10 seconds, and I know about what 10 seconds feels inside of the battlefield, right? So you have to develop like this game sense. So it's not just knowing like the hard number, but it's knowing like what that amount of time feels inside of the battle and developing like a sense for that. You want to add anything here, Rob?
Yes, I will say that the basics as a core, to kind of back up one step, all of these basics are super important at every stage of development for players. Meaning that these things are like the fundamentals in any sport. You can't play soccer well until you can control the ball on your feet. You can't play basketball well until you can dribble very, very efficiently by yourself under pressure and also at pace rather than just walking around. Like there's all kinds of fundamentals in every sport, and esports are no different. This is definitely one of those things.
Right. Like, honestly, learning these alone and getting good at these will make your game sense skyrocket. Because when you're starting out the game, just remember, if you're a player that's been playing the game for a while, like I guess most of us have been, because Overwatch has been out for quite some time now. But when you first were starting out the game, certain abilities kind of caught you by surprise, right? Or sometimes you would get killed by certain things that you're like, what? What was that? Who threw that at me? And you didn't really know what was shooting what at you, and it took some time to kind of like digest all of that information, playing different characters to kind of start realizing, oh, okay, the big yellow flying thing comes from Reinhardt, or the grenades that are shooting at me from above come from the Junkrat and stuff, and they start associating these things. But you want to take it to the next level, where you have a comprehensive look at all of the abilities, including the new heroes that come out, internalizing their cooldowns, what abilities come from what heroes, and their damage too. And like just like we said with abilities, their relative damage. You don't have to know exact damage numbers, but you have to know, for example, a Junkrat kills me with 3 of his grenades, or a soldier takes about 5 seconds of shooting straight at me to knock me down. Stuff like this, like damage relative to the health pool of the hero that you're playing, right? Like, how much do things hurt?
And I would add to that, what do you do when certain things are presented to you? Like not only knowing those, but kind of going to the intermediate thing, I would say is kind of like the transition to advance would be which of these factors are relevant to me right now and where should I be in relationship to understanding those things?
Yeah, yeah,
For
yeah.
example, if Junkrat is spamming a choke, how do I get around that? Or how do I interact with that choke so that I can still progress through while minimizing damage? Am I watching his reload? Am I watching my team? Am I calling a speed? Something like this.
Exactly. In ranges too, know the ranges where heroes are effective. Know that certain heroes are really effective at shorter range. You know that other heroes are effective at longer range, and that's why we're saying these are all basics over here. Oh, did we lose Rob? Are you there?
I changed the region to US West and see if that helps.
Okay, you're back. You froze there for a second. You had the funniest face, and I'm like, is he really impressed by what I'm
Yeah,
saying, or did he
he
freeze?
roboted as well.
You're still roboting a little bit, but let's see if we can keep going and it gets better a little bit. Alrighty, next thing I wanted to talk about is the sound cues for all abilities. Just like knowing damage numbers, just like knowing relative cooldowns, you want to know the exact sound cues for all of the abilities out there. And when I mean all. And I know it sounds kind of daunting, like, oh man, I really have to pay attention to all these abilities, but it makes a huge difference. If you're trying to improve as a player and get much better, having all this knowledge at your disposal is really, really effective. And sound cues sometimes can be a little bit underrated. I know that a lot of people make a big deal about playing with sound in this game and they're orienting with sound, but I don't feel like they make enough of a deal. Like, you can play this game just by sound in so many occasions, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But to be able to really abuse that, you have to know how footsteps sound for different heroes. You have to know what abilities sound. For example, a nana grenade splashing in the ground makes a very particular sound that is recognizable from a mile away. Even smaller abilities, like even like a Reinhardt shield breaking, for example, has a sound. And learning to recognize these sounds can make a big difference in your gameplay because they're like clues or checkpoints or kind of I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but they kind of like orient you in the fight in a different way that visual cues do.
Yeah, and I'll have something to speak to this because within the last 2.5 weeks, I went into BattleNet and added there's a voiceover package that you can download and enable in BattleNet, not inside of Overwatch, but in your settings for Overwatch and BattleNet. And I turned on all of the Japanese voices so that I could practice a little bit of my Japanese understanding and hear what the voice actors are. There are some of them that are not as good, I think, in the Japanese voice actor department, but there are others that are amazing and super funny, like Doomfist, for example. Um, and Ash's voice actress is amazing in Japanese. So I've been playing it with this, and I have to tell you, there's certain times where I'm way more panicked because I don't know the voice cues for certain ultimates still, and I haven't
And
learned
you
all of
feel
the voice actors
disoriented
yet.
a little bit, right?
So what has ended up happening is I've been playing way safer than I should have been and hanging back, and it's been like separating me from my teams in ranked or playing in games. This has just been way more stressful because I don't know what is what. But overall, it's been more fun because I can experience the game in a different way. So just to give you an idea, I've been playing in English for so long that switching it over to Japanese has been pretty disorienting, but I wanted to make sure that I had somewhat of a connecting point with some people here if I ever, travel and meet up with Japanese players. I wanted to kind of experience, oh, I know which hero that is. Because if you watch Overwatch League, all of the Korean players at large will be playing the game in Korean, both text and in voice. So they have no experience with the English voice actors in the game.
Oh yeah, I bet it's like such a shock when you kind of change the language and then everything else is like, wait, what are they saying? Is that a graviton? Oh no, it's too late.
And I don't believe any of the characters are the same. From the English to Japanese, like even Hanzo and Genji have different voice actors.
Oh yeah, I would bet because it would be super hard to kind of like have one voice actor have to do it for different languages and different time zones. Oh, that would be a mess. You probably
Mhm.
have to get different
Mhm.
teams. Alrighty, but moving on, just to finish off the basics, because I know all of these we've talked about before in the show. A lot of them we've dedicated like full shows to, like the one we're about to talk. Ultimate tracking, another very important, like basic improving your game sense skill. Being able to track the ultimates of your enemy, paying attention to them, and internalizing kind of like when they're gonna come, what ultimates are in line first by kind of paying attention to what enemy is dealing the most damage, who's getting a lot of value from the enemy team, and assuming, hey, this person is close to getting his ultimate. Let me act accordingly and change my playstyle based on that. It's super important to just basic game sense in Overwatch. Is kind of like one of the basic requirements. Ultimates are such an integral part of the game that you kind of have to develop a game sense for them.
Absolutely. I think we should get into the advanced stuff, and then you guys will start understanding how the basics tend to be more cumulative, meaning that we're building blocks into getting to the next step.
Right. The stuff that we're about to talk about kind of builds on all of these. The last two that are worth mentioning before we move into those are have a deep knowledge of all of the maps. Like really know them upside down. Know the flank routes. Know even the special locations that certain heroes can abuse. Like Soldier 76 or Zarya can use like their special jump, their rocket jump, by boosting
Widow
themselves
sight lines.
with their alternate fire to reach places that they can't reach before. or Lucios can climb through walls and come around you from places that you didn't know. Same with Genjis, same with Winston's or Doomfists. So, like, know these places where heroes can interact with and know them intimately, know the flank routes, know where the base places to defend are, same as places to retreat. Can you travel a map by walking backwards? That's usually a good sign that you know the map really well without like falling into precipices or
Where are all
falling
the
into
health
walls.
packs?
And after you've been playing for the game for a while, you really can do this, and it's helpful. Sometimes when you're in the battle and you have to keep your eyes on the enemy but retreat at the same time, for example, knowing that intimate knowledge of the map, you can just walk backwards and know, hey, there's a wall behind there, so I need to turn right, and you don't get stuck into a corner and get killed by a Genji, which happens to players that are still getting to know the maps. You know, they constantly get stuck in places they shouldn't, get killed because of it, or they tried retreating f- to a certain route only to find out that that's a dead end, and then they get killed. And obviously, this is very beginner stuff, but knowing the maps intimately increases your game sense by a ton.
The best way to do this is by playing low mobility heroes and not switching when you're getting punished for this exact thing, aka playing Zenyatta or playing Ana or playing McCree or playing Soldier. Even Soldier has a lot of mobility in his kit, but it's very much like ground based. So if you can only move around on the ground and you need to retreat or you need to move in certain directions while under pressure, low mobility heroes will teach you a lot of good habits and where things are.
Right. And it'll happen organically too as you play the
Yeah.
game. The more you play the game, the more you get killed from like a weird route, or like you're playing against a player that's using like a cool passage. You're like, oh, I didn't know you could go up through there. So you'll learn them over time. But one of the easiest ways is just to go into the custom map editor and go through the maps yourself. Pick a hero that you like, Genji or Lucio or Doomfist, that can go around any nook and cranny and really explore it yourself. You know, go everywhere and be like, oh, this is here, this leads to this. Oh, if I'm coming through here, I can take this other route and come out this other end, and just explore it yourself. Oh, and the last one, have a game sense for like hero deaths, flanks, and count tracking. And what I mean by that is, you know that there's 6 enemies on the enemy team. There's always 6. So if you're only seeing 3, where are the other 2? Are they dead? Are they coming back? Are they flanking you? What are the missing heroes? You can alt tab and see what heroes the enemy is playing. So if you see that they have like a Reinhardt, a Lucio, a Mercy, and a McCree, and you can account for those, but like the Genji and the Tracer are missing, then that tells you something, right? Like, they're not just standing in spawn. I mean, maybe they are, but chances are that they're not, and they're just flanking you somewhere. So keeping a count for the heroes is a skill that you should develop, and is one that takes a minute, right? Paying attention to the kill feed, even when you're in the middle of the fight, and keeping that internal count of, oh, 2 heroes died, 1 from my team, 1 from the enemy team, or 3 heroes just died. What are they? My team? Okay, -2 is a 6v4. Have that mental math in your head and always be kind of like counting your teammates and the enemy team and keeping that mental count, because it's one of the easiest ways to stagger yourself if you're not paying attention to this, or to engage in unfavorable fights. If you think like, oh, my ultimate is ready, this is the time to go, and you're not taking into account that 3 teammates just died, that ultimate is not gonna get much value, and you might be looking like a fool coming out there and trying to 6v1 and dying immediately. You wanna add anything over here?
No, I think we got to get into it. We're burning daylight for the advanced part of this. So let's get
Let's
into it.
do it. All
So the
right.
first thing up here we have is Daredevil tracking, as per labeled by Andres. And what that means is it's all about sound. So if you're wanting to play the game, we talked about this a little bit in the basics guide. This is like the next step of specific things with sound to inform specific decisions. So you're looking for sound cues to track stuff that you can't see, and not just enemy movements, although that's one thing. So you have a mental idea of where the zones are that you want to go to, the approaching pathways, the places that people can be, and you're looking and listening for those locations of your teammates and your enemies. And the best way to do this is by grouping up, or if you're on a flank route, slowing yourself down, hitting the crouch key, and listening while you're moving. Andres?
Yeah, exactly what you said. Daredevil tracking, how I labeled it, is basically exactly that. Just using sound cues to create a mental image of what is happening. And this is so important in Overwatch when you're trying to be subtle, especially with certain heroes. And you would think like, well, certain heroes can just come out and be guns blazing like Reinhardt, like he doesn't need to hide or be subtle. He can just go through the middle of the road and walk over with his huge shield. But even Reinhardt can benefit from these techniques because you can literally see what is happening in a different room without even seeing it. Obviously, the most obvious examples of this is flanking. When you're flanking, you're going off by yourself, you're taking risky routes, you don't know what's on the other side unless you have like Widow sights or something, or Hanzo's arrow. But for the most part, you're going in blind. And when you're trying to do that approach, using sound to your advantage can be everything. Listening to footsteps and especially knowing what kind of footsteps they are, you can immediately know there's a McCree in that room, or there's a Reaper in that room, there's a Roadhog waiting for me around the corner, or maybe it's the Ana, maybe it's the Soldier 76, maybe it's a juicy target that I can actually get. But what if I hear two footsteps? Now I know it's a 2v1 before I even go into the room. So being able to recognize the heroes through sound like that can already tell you what you're approaching into. You can also listen to abilities, like Rob said. You don't only have to listen to heroes, but did Anna just use her grenade? Or, for example, with McCree, a big thing that I do is if I'm dueling and I'm losing the duel, I start retreating, and usually, they'll push you because they want to finish the kill. So you just go around the corner and just listen out. As soon as you hear the footsteps coming close to the corner, you flashbang, come out, and you finish them out. They were so confident that you were so low and you could finish them, but your positioning in the map didn't allow you to see them there, and you use your sound to your advantage to finish off the kill. So pretty basic example. But I mean, there's so many. Just basically using sound to create those mental images, and basically seeing danger before you even see it, like visually see it.
And sometimes there's scenarios where both teams are using Q 6 times, so you have a 12 ultimate fight. Like, sometimes it happens. There's lights, there's cameras, there's ultimates, there's everything going on, and the only thing that you can use to distinguish where things are is not even in your vision cavity. You have to use your sound. You have to use your what you know from muscle memory is taking place in that map and that zone. So in those scenarios, especially when I'm playing support on let's say Ana or Lucio, is trying to improve your vision while maintaining your team movement or healing. And then you're also trying to understand that when, for example, I'll use here is like when an enemy Winston is ultimate use, you can hear where he's jumping. You can hear the jets on his pack. You can hear where he lands. You can learn the sound of what happens when he jumps sounds different than when he lands, and where that is in position wise. And pretty much all of this stuff would necessitate having a decent pair of headphones on. Console or PC, you
Yes.
need to have a decent pair of headphones that have some sort of directional input, and you're turning Dolby Atmos off, because that has a slight distance issue with regards to 360-degree movement. They help enhance like directions, but they don't really help you enhance like the distance away
I
and
feel
the
like they
loudness
muddy. I
factor.
feel like they muddy the sound a little bit, so it's harder to recognize individual sounds. But directionally, it does
Mhm.
help. But I don't know. It's too weird for me.
It's one of those trade-offs you kind of have to choose. Do you want to know direction, or do you want to know like specifics, and do you want to know distance? Because I feel
Yeah.
like the distance of those footsteps is a big thing, especially for Winston. But like you can hear where he is without having to look around and find and track him. You can track him with your ears while you're maintaining what's going on in your vision um, box. And
Absolutely.
the one thing that we didn't mention here that's really interesting is at any point in time in Overwatch, You have a 360-degree and sometimes further out distance-wise from that, understanding of what is going on with your ears, but you only have a limited perception with your eyes because
And
you
that
don't
is
have a whole lot
so
of
important. Like the thing that
peripheral
you just
vision.
said there is so important because your ears are paying attention to the entire battlefield while your point of view is only focused in like such a minuscule like slice of the whole battle, you know what I mean? And what you were saying, using it to find the position of certain heroes, you can do this by process of like deduction, right? Like let's say you're defending King's Row on point A. Um, and you know how there's like that big building when you're defending and people can go above you. Sometimes when you're kind of like defending towards a statue and like shooting towards a statue, maybe you hear a Winston behind you, and you can make like quick deductions here. You make a hero count. Is anyone in your team Winston? If no, then that's an enemy Winston. If yes, where's your enemy Winston? Is he in front of you? He is. So why are you hearing Winston footsteps behind you? Then another deduction you can make is behind me there's a giant wall. So the only way that I can be hearing footsteps behind me is if he's in the above hallway. So now you immediately know what hero it is and where he is without even seeing him. And if you're a character like Zenyatta or Anna, this can be the difference between life and death. Between Winston, like literally having an easy drop off where he just drops on you, starts damaging you, and he can still has his jump to either finish you off or jump away, or you repositioning a way where he can't easily get to you, or he has to commit his jump to get to you, and at that point you can deal with him a lot better, or even better, like knowing that he's there, so you making the call out, firing a few things up there to create some pressure for him, and basically let him know, like, dude, I know that you're here, and disincentivize him from like even attempting that dive. So there's so many uses.
Yeah. Now let's flip this on its head and talk more about like allies' Spidey senses or Daredevil senses. Sorry. So if you are playing Reinhardt, especially, or you're playing a diva, where you have a little bit more, I guess it's more Reinhardt. You have a little bit more than peripheral vision because you can go third person with your shield.
Hmm.
You can see more things and pay attention to less things with your vision by understanding where your team is, relationship behind you, by not having to use, like, there's a reason that they didn't put in the whole hold the left clicker and pan around to check your back like a rear view mirror for Reinhardt for so long. It's because good players for Reinhardt wouldn't need it. They would just listen to where their team was behind them and use that deduction as where their team was and when to push and when to pull back and who to protect. Because when people are getting dove, when you're playing Reinhardt or you're playing a healer, you can hear where your allies are and position safely in relationship to them as well as what cover you have. You can find out where your Ana is shooting you by paying attention to the vision, yes, but also paying attention to the clicks, the choo 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 sound from behind you. Where is that coming from? And how do I get into a position where I can actually receive those? So that's something that you can do on tanks or on healers or even on DPS. You can play certain things in certain ways to kind of get vision of your healers by knowing where they are by using your sound cues.
Absolutely. Another way that you can use your Daredevil senses in this way is when you're battling at close range, for example. When you're battling at close range against another hero, it can be quite disorienting, right? Like they're moving left and right. You're moving left and right too because you don't want to be hit. And sometimes you end up in these places where they're not in your line of vision anymore. And you need to decide, are they right? Are they left? Are they behind me? And where you're doing things like a Genji blade is a great example of this. You dive in with the Genji blade, you dash through them, and there's a split second where they move out of the way, and you have to decide where you're gonna turn with your blade. And the turn is very important because if you turn the wrong way, that's a slash that you just missed, and maybe you don't even get to finish them off. They maybe go out of your Genji blade range at that point. So it's very important that you turn and you kill them in the right way. And more than once, I've been able to turn into the right direction because I heard them in that direction. So you dash him, and they're usually panicking, so they jump. and they eventually land with the jump, and you have a split second to hear right, left, right, behind, and you can react to that. Like your blade, the slash lasts enough that you can definitely hear things and react to them in that amount of time. So you can, for Tracer, for example, this is also valuable when you're blinking all over the place and they end up behind you. If you listen for them for like that little jump that they do to avoid you and then falling behind you, you know they're there. You can turn around and orient yourself in those little micro movements as well.
Yep, and just again, a reminder before we go into the next section that these are advanced. These are definitely more than other things, and we do not recommend looking through and trying to master this without the previous knowledge of what the abilities are, what everything sounds like to begin with, before you can transition into this phase.
Well, you wouldn't be able to
This
take
is
advantage of
definitely
them.
more of
Yeah, like for a lot of these tips that we just talked, for example, to make those deductions, you need to know the maps, for example.
Yep.
You also need to know what heroes sound like. None of that would work if you don't have that down. And if you've been playing the game for a while, more than likely you do have all of things down. But are you listening out for them? Are you making a conscious effort to really pay attention to all of them?
Yeah. All right, Andres, let's go to your Nostradamus prediction section of this.
Yeah. The next one I called Nostradamus predictions, because sometimes you can feel like a prophet in this game. If you've played this game long enough, if you've internalized those cooldowns like we've been talking about, if you've played enough heroes that you know their playstyle, when their ultimates come online, you're good at ult tracking. There comes points in this game where you truly make some out of this world predictions and you just see them coming. And I don't know how else to explain it. Some of you might have experienced this, but you're in the middle of the game and there's a specific pattern of moves the enemy team starts making and it just clicks. You see the matrix, you're like, this is coming. You see the graviton, you see the Reinhardt's intentions. You know he wants to shatter you, and you're ready for it, and you're ready to shield it, dash away, whatever it is, bait it out. It can get to a point where you can get so good at these predictions that, like you said, you can bait them out. You can play aggressively to the point where you listen to the sound cue, and as soon as you hear the sound cue, you're out of there, or you use your defensive cooldown and you're in safety, making them look like a fool. And it's one of the most powerful tools you can have in Overwatch. Pros use this all of the time, and sometimes you see them make some insane reactions that you would be like, how the hell do you even react that fast to that? And it's not that they're reacting, they reacted a while ago. They predicted it. They were just waiting for it, and they knew the exact time to do their abilities to kind of counter it. Very powerful tool. What do you think about this one,
There's
Rob?
something that is really cool with this is you could be a prophet by predicting how the enemies are going to move with relationship to what you're going to throw at them. This is basically thinking 2 steps ahead in chess. So I'll give you a really fun, more basic example to kind of give you an idea. So one of the things that happened in our scrim that we 3-0'd this week, boys, in one of my scrims and or one of our games this week, and in the game on Anubis we were defending and we ran Diva Reinhardt, Ana, Lucio, and I don't remember if we were playing 3 tanks and 1 DPS. I think we were playing Reaper and Widowmaker. So we ran a Diva bomb. We were trying to set up a play, and they're trying to push in on Anubis point B as we're defending. So the Reinhardt's setting up there, we're spamming shield, and they start maneuvering up the steps. And the second I see them start coming up the steps, I tell the guy to throw the Diva bomb right over top of the bridge, you know, the little catwalk. So as soon as he throws it pretty close to kind of get it to go behind them. And what happens is the Reinhardt turns slowly to block the Diva bomb, kind of like tracking it with the shield. And I wait for the Diva bomb to go, like, I counted like 1, 2, you know, like you're counting as it's going in the air. And then I fire a sleep dart at the Reinhardt from point. The second the bomb is about to go off, the Reinhardt falls asleep and 2 guys behind him are instantly dead together with the Reinhardt.
Nice.
So you're setting up a play really, really effectively by maintaining I think they're gonna do this. I'm gonna prepare for them to do this by holding a sleep dart and holding a diva bomb, and then I'm gonna wait for them to do this, and then we're gonna respond with this, and then they're gonna respond with that. So I'm gonna do this. So you're basically like thinking this through with a set play. And there's all kinds of crazy stuff that you can do. You can initiate the set plays. You can react to their set plays by knowing what their combos are. Like if they have a Genji and they have an Ana, they're waiting to do both of those together. So how do you shut it down? That kind of a thing.
Yeah, no, that exactly what you just said is an amazing way of predicting it. There is certain patterns that players are going to do because people have been playing this game for a really long time. People know what are good things that they should do, bad things that they should do. They know like, hey, if they do this move, I do this move, and there's like this common knowledge of if this happens, then you do this. If this happens, you do this, right? Like Graviton happens, you use Zenyatta ult or Lucio ult, or if Soldier is using his visor, you nano boost him. Like there's those things that kind of like are just givens in this game, or like people follow kind of blindly all of the time. And you can play to those things. Like you said, the Genji dashes in the air, he's gonna pull out his sword, he's gonna get nano boosted. Some Saryas, for example, just save their Graviton for that moment. And they're like, you know what? I'm going to trade a 2-for-1 here. We're going to grab the Genji with a Graviton while he is trying to kill us all. And after the Graviton wears off, he's out of the blade and out of the nano, and we kill him super easily. So stuff like this, being able to predict those plays and having your arsenal ready, or like you said, Rob, baiting things. Like if you throw certain things at the enemy, they're gonna react a certain way, and you're expecting that. You're making your prediction, and sometimes when you predict right and you act accordingly, you can get the enemy by surprise quite hard.
And it's important to note that all of these things that we're saying here are things that we kind of expect where we're at now in playing the game and progressing and getting to this level, because sometimes people just aren't going to coordinate in your random games, or even if you're playing in a team and everyone is kind of in a lower skill bracket of understanding, game sense wise or whatever, they're just not going to be doing certain things that you're maybe expecting them. So you may need to be more explicit with what you say, or do it in a quicker way, depending on how how talented people are, what are their expectations for certain things, and kind of knowing your team is really important in this way. Um, I know that there are some times when I'm playing with friends of mine that are gold, for example, or I'm playing with my friends in diamond. I don't have the same expectations of those teams, and so when I get into the form where I'm expecting them to perform a certain way or understand a certain scenario, it's just different. The mentalities are different. And there's other times where you have gold players that are really, really, really good. And so they already know this thing. And those players are the ones that are kind of like understanding the game on a more fundamental level, and they're improving their macro sense. It doesn't mean that you're going to be a better rank. It just means that your rank is going to it just means that your understanding of the game is better. And that's what we're really trying to get at here. Is not really like kind of pushing the rank discussion, but more of like understanding that people have different knowledge bases. Even in my diamond games, I have people that are like, I don't understand how you got here, or I don't understand how
Well,
you're operating
I
without this
think also
assumption that
people
you
have
don't get nano.
different strengths, right? Like some people are amazing
Yeah.
at like the macro games, and some people are amazing at the mechanics. And I think that you
Mhm.
can carry yourself to the higher ranks based off of one or the other. But the higher you go, the more you need to be better at all of them cumulatively, right? Because everyone else is getting good at all of them cumulatively, and you just got to compete with better players in that sense. Last thing I want to say about predictions, though, is it can go both ways. You can get predicted too, and I'm gonna give a little example of a game that I was playing. That it was a really fun game. I was playing Genji and Anubis, and the enemy team was playing Roadhog, and their Roadhog was definitely their best player. He was the guy that was keeping me away for the most part. He had really good game sense. I kept flanking. I kept being really smart about my approaches, and I was killing a lot of the enemy team. But definitely, the Roadhog was keeping his eye on me, so I was keeping my eye on him too, and paying attention to like when he was looking at me. And the second I would see him like raise his left arm, I would be deflecting, and it was like this skill battle back and forth. He killed me a couple times. I killed him a couple times. There were several times that I was able to predict the hook and deflect it, so I was feeling good. I was feeling pretty confident because we were about to win the map. We're pushing pretty hard, and I had him in the red. I had predicted maybe like his previous 5 hooks, so I was feeling super confident with this guy. He was red, and I was right behind him. He was running away from me, and I was just shooting shurikens at his back. Basically, I was about to die, and I was super confident because my deflect was up, and I was, if the second he turns around, I will be able to react to him turning around, and I know what he's gonna do. He's gonna turn around and try to hook me and one shot him because that is his only out. So I'm like thinking all of this in my head. But this guy, he knows the same thing. He knows like this Genji has deflected every single hook that I've thrown at him for the past like 5 times. I'm running away from him. So the second I turn, it's gonna be super obvious what I'm going to do. So instead, what he does is he does a blind 180 and hooks immediately. He's not trying to like look and aim like most people would try to do with the hook. He just does a Hail Mary 180, throws the hook, and sure enough, I'm like right behind him. So the chances of him getting me are pretty high. He hooks me and he kills me. And immediately we both just go into the chat like, oh my God. And he's like, dude, I can't believe I just got you with that hook. And I was like, dude, a second slower and I would have deflected that thing. So just, is that a good example of like prediction goes both ways? I was so confident that I was gonna predict him, but he knew that, so he made himself unpredictable. High risk, high reward move, but it ended up working out for him.
Yeah, there's other things that I've heard of other like players where, like for example, I talk with Jay Lee a lot about Ana, just kind of privately between the two of us, and so we kind of know when you hear or when you see a dash, a Genji in the sky, you know what's coming. So you basically like pre-firing your dart just to get it ready and line it up, and then as soon as they dash down, you just shoot like where they're coming to rather than where they are now. And also, when you get higher, Jay Lee was telling me that he kind of just waits because he knows that they're going to dash through you so they can dodge it. So he just pre-fires. He hits the thing to kind of cue up the animation for the sleep dart and then 180s it and just hits them every time. So he'll take the dash damage and hit them right away. So
Yeah,
some really cool stuff.
and if you see Jay Lee's darts, some of them look insane. Like you think to yourself, like, how can somebody even react that fast? And honestly, he's not. He is not like he's turning around, seeing where the enemy is then like firing the sleep dart and calculating all of this. Absolutely not. What he's doing instead is he has internalized what a 180 is. So he can turn 180 really fast and shoot right behind him with accuracy. He doesn't need to like know where the target is behind him. He can see them dash. So if you see the angle of the dash, you know kind of like the general location where they end up behind you. And if you've internalized that movement and you can turn very quickly, you'll catch him every time. And sometimes you see some pro players do this with like McCree, like Genji dashes behind them, they turn around 180, headshot kill them in like a split second, like inhuman reaction time. And it's because they have that ready, like they've practiced it so many times that they know where to look and move instinctively.
All right, we got the next one up here is the Spidey sense. This is something that Andres and I love talking about. This is the predictions and anticipating. This is going to have a little bit of overlap with the Nostradamus predictions, but this one is going to be about particularly having more of a sixth sense rather than like observation. Like there are some things where you can anticipate things to happen and notice like abnormalities in movements or approaches or seeing somebody act differently all of a sudden. That would be more of the prediction side of this. But then you have more of just like, they haven't used this or they haven't used that. That would be a combination of these two. Maybe they're trying to bait you. Maybe they're trying to not use it. Or maybe they're waiting on you to do something and then they're going to do it. The other thing that you can do here is kind of like, okay, if this player is missing or if this thing is going on and this other part of it that is supposed to be happening right now in my mind is not there, then why is it not happening? That would be more of the spidey sense. It's like, I know that they wanna kill me. They've dove me in every fight, and they're not doing it right now. What's up? What are they waiting for? How am I supposed to do this? And how am I supposed to react? Should I push up with my tanks as a DPS player? Should I pull back? Should I go just hide? And then now they have another layer of complexity. They're like, "Well, where did where did the McCree go? Where's the Reaper?" Stuff like
This
that. So you're kind
this
of, like,
one
monitoring it.
this one is super important because if you have a good spidey sense, you can really know where do you need to be, where do you need to put pressure, and where you need to look for to not get taken advantage of. Let me give you guys an example. Let's say you're Eichenwald point two. You're getting close to the bridge, and you're almost at the end of the bridge where your payload hits the giant door, and you go into the castle. Right? You're attacking, and this is a super specific point because it happens all the time in ranked games. I think where you're crossing this bridge and you're only paying attention to the people who are coming into the bridge. And I love doing this as McCree or as Widowmaker because people don't pay attention to this a lot of the time. And is when you're attacking, people are focusing on the payload. But if you're playing somebody like McCree or Widowmaker on defense, you can go off to the side and into the bridge and go almost to like the attacker's second spawn, and it's amazing how many free shots you can get from here because the attackers won't pay attention to this flank. They assume like, hey, the payload is over here. We just need to push the payload. And they don't pay attention to like, wait a minute, there's a person missing or there's two people missing. Why are there only four people defending this payload? And once they realize this is because you're shooting with Widowmaker behind them and they're sitting in the bridge, they can't get to you. Or like with McCree, you can just dead eye and get like 5 kills super easily. There's no cover in this bridge. There's nowhere to get there. And the only way to like kind of like prevent this is to have like a little bit of a spidey sense and realize like who is not here. We need to take this flanking route above because you know how the map layout works. It's actually quite easy to get there from the defending spawn point. You just go left from one of the doors and you're up in the hill already ready to go. And make sure to cover points like this one. Have that sixth sense of like, hey, something bad is going to come through here, and I should have kind of like that ominous feeling of like, the fight is not over, right? Like something is missing. Keeping your player counts, for example.
Spidey sense is also really interesting to kind of bring up because it's not just the warning signs. It's not just the anticipation. It is the next step. The Spidey sense would be like, I'm going to duck, or I'm going to run, or I'm going to shoot, or I'm going to save this ability for that. This is, I know the Zen is going to use their ultimate. They haven't used it for 3 fights. I don't know when it's going to come up, but I'm not going to use this ability until they're ready for it. And then I'm going to do it. I'm going to ante them right away, or I'm going to save my boop for when the Zenyatta comes in and we're on the bridge on Eichenwald and he's going off the map. There's all kinds of stuff like that. Or I'm not going to go engage with this fight. I'll speed you guys to this point, and then I'm going to go hide, and I'm going to jump up and boop, boop, boop up the wall and shoot them off. I did that in our in our game on Eichenwald this week. I booped off this poor Reinhardt and Zarya every fight on that point. It was the most glorious thing because they just do not play around the edge. And what happened was they finally figured it out that I kept going for it. And what did they do? They pushed all the way into this area. And so I booped the Reinhardt straight up in the air, and we get a 4-player shatter, wipe them out, and win the map. So you can do certain things over and over again, get them to anticipate it, and then change your approach. Get them into the palm of your hand where their spidey senses are in your control. And then you can do whatever you want with them, because then they're not going to predict what you're going to do next because you've done the same thing 3 times. They think you're going to keep doing. You're going to play Reddit Lucio anymore. You're not
Absolutely.
Reddit Lucio anymore.
Against heroes like Tracer and Sombra, for example, having those spidey senses is super important. When the enemy team is approaching and you notice, a player is not there, chances are that Tracer is flanking. And if you're, for example, a McCree and your front line is not taking too much pressure, they have a DPS missing because their tracer is flanking. So you gauge your chances. Is the front line okay? Are your supports okay? Tracer is missing. What is the most likely flank route that she's going to take? Analyze where the map that you are. Analyze where your team is. Analyze where your supports are. Where does that tracer want to go? And if you're good at that Spidey sense kind of prediction, you can make her life miserable. Like the second she comes around that hall, boom, flashbang, headshot, and she would be surprised. Like, how the hell did he know I was gonna come from here? And it was from a process of deduction, right? Like you're deducing, first of all, who's not with the enemy team. Second, what are their intentions and what is the juiciest target for them. Third, what is the most likely route that they're gonna use to achieve that goal? And you read all of that, and you outplay them like that. You're prepared for their approach through that flank, through that route, whatever it is. Sombra is the same thing. So many people don't do this at the lower ranks, but if you're playing against the Sombra and you're sitting in a place where you think she might be around, sometimes just swinging around your hammer like a madman or shooting your diva all over the place or just melee or like literally shoot anywhere. Like sometimes it's so funny because you just start shooting it out of nowhere and then Sombra comes out like in the middle of the enemy team and you're like, got you. And
we call it Minesweeper Winston because you just like spin around and you're like, oh, I found her.
They're so surprised because they don't expect you to start shooting in the middle of nowhere at nothing. Mm-hmm. But if you know that they're playing Sombra, like why wouldn't you? Especially if you're like a character like Diva that you don't have to reload. If you're a Diva, you're like a prime hero to get Sombras out of stealth. But again, you have to have that Spidey sense. Like, does this seem like a good location for Sombra to be against the enemy team? Is my Reinhardt back exposed? Should I be shooting behind him just to make sure that Sombra is not gonna come and hack him? Or if things are a little quiet for a little too long and you see the enemy team kind of like looking at you from a distance, kind of just like waiting for something, that might be a clue, right? Like maybe they're waiting for the hack or the Sombra is positioning for an EMP, and look for her.
Yep, I agree. Let's bring it home, Andres. Ultimate, or gosh dang it, I already said the wrong one again. Ultra Instinct. We were talking about this in the pre-show. We're like, is it Ultra Instinct or is it Ultimate Instinct? I don't know what it is.
Okay.
It's like this different adjective.
To bring it all together, reaching Ultra Instinct, and if you guys, anyone listening is a Dragon Ball's super fan, they'll get the reference. But Ultra Instinct is a state of zen and maximum power. When you reach Ultra Instinct, you gather all these things that we've been talking about over here, and you're utilizing them without a second thought. They're flowing naturally through your body. And in order to get to that state, you really, 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 one, have to have your basics down. Like all of them that we talk about, ultimate tracking, knowing all the abilities, their cooldowns, all of that you have to have down. Then you want to have been using the techniques that we're talking about, the Daredevil techniques, the Nostradamus predictions, your Spidey sense. But you want to get them to a place where they're just natural to you. You've done it so many times. You know the numbers so well. You know the heroes so well that doing these things just comes naturally. You don't have to think about them. You're not constantly reminding yourself like, oh, I need to track ultimates. Oh, this ability here, this ability that. When you reach this state, one, it requires a lot of practice and discipline and constant practice. That's one key. You got to do it constantly. Two, be in a good place mentally, be well rested, be well fed, find yourself a cozy space where you're not super distracted, where you can be comfortable and be one with the game, and then you'll become Jonak.
Just an easy 1, 2, 3.
Just 1, 2, 3 steps.
Simply because there's only one person who's ever achieved Jonakness.
Well, this last one is a little cheeky, I know. And none of us at Omnic Lab have reached this state. But sometimes when you're playing the game, you can get close. I know that some of you that have been playing the game for a while, you've been in that match where you're not thinking about cooldowns. You're not thinking about outside problems of your life. You're just like one with the game and things are gelling. You're predicting things, you know things are coming. You're making good frags. Your mechanics are on point. You're warmed up, and things just seem to be clicking. You're kind of like in that state of flow, and things just follow each other. You're climbing the ranks. I think that most people who've played Overwatch for a while have at least experienced this once or twice. It's a really cool place to be, and it takes a lot of practice and, like I said, a good state of mind to be there. But um, I mean,
It's what a lot of players in any sport or esport will say is just getting in the zone or getting hot.
mhm.
Sometimes you can't miss. Sometimes you can't screw up. It just happens. It's really weird. Sometimes that guy's going to have 3 guys on him on the 3-point line and still make it from downtown, you know? It happens in every sport and in every esport. Sometimes the guy's just going to 6v1. It just happens. I mean, sometimes Carpe just stands on his head and he's like, "No, you don't get to win this map." And then there's other times where it's difficult to recognize, but knowing when to quit is one of those super hard things because I feel like even the best players really need to be in that space where it's time to stop. Like, I need to just sit down. It's not just a meme. It's time to stop. Like, I need to go away. I need to go sit down for a little bit and do something else, or I just need to get up. I'm just saying, like, getting well rested, getting well fed. That is some of the best advice of anything. There's a really good Seth Rogen podcast that we've promoted a couple times on the episode, or on our episodes about, which is just
Joe
the
Rogan,
importance
not
of sleep.
Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen, sorry, that's the actor. Joe Rogan is the guy from X Factor or whatever, the Fear
Yeah,
Factor.
yeah,
Sorry,
Fear
the Fear
Factor.
Factor host. But yeah, he has a really really good podcast. You check that out about sleep. And then the other one is, I'll even talk with Andres about this when we're playing on ranked. It's just like my hands are super shaky and I haven't eaten in like a long time. I need to go get a snack or I need to go get something of substantiality and some water. Even just staying properly hydrated is really tough sometimes because you just lose track of time. You played one too many battle royale games and you switched over to Overwatch and forgot to eat in between. I don't know. Depends on where you're at in your personal life, but definitely remember, just make the atmosphere comfortable and fun, but also don't forget about your personal well-being and health. Those are some of the most important things, and mental health is also one of those things, but it's a lot less straightforward with how to properly mental health. Like, there's no like good guides because everyone's different with regards to how this works. It's not as simple as go to sleep, eat dinner.
No,
But those two
but
things are very, very
take care of
helpful with
yourself.
getting there.
Yeah, take care of
Mhm.
yourself, because if you take care of yourself, you will just be able to interact better with anything, including video games and Overwatch. And I know that a lot of you just started playing Apex Legends and have been playing that game for like 48 hours straight with no eating. But don't forget, you should.
Yeah, for sure. And another good way to practice all these things and get some tips is hang out in our Discord. Come over to discord.me/OmnicLab. Come hang out, ask for advice, ask for people to do some coaching for you. If they're willing, they'll let you know. You can also come to game nights at the end of each month. You can find people to go play with if you'd like, and people happen to be online and want to join. Remember, just be polite, be kind, and remember that not everyone is at your skill rank. If you want to go play with them, sometimes they just say no. Other times they just ignore you because they don't want to tell you no, and they want to be nice. I'm one of those people. I don't want to say no. I just want to be nice and like give you some help. But Andres and I can't always play with every one of our listeners,
I'll play with
unfortunately.
you guys, with all of you, every single one.
You heard it here first. You heard it here first. If you guys want to play Apex Legends, I know that Andres and I both have it downloaded. We'd love to come hang out with you guys. That's definitely a much more fun game orientation wise for us. So we don't mind playing with pretty much anyone as long as they're online at the same times or we have an opening, and we'll outreach that way. I know Andres, you've got a good clan for Sea of Thieves, so you've been playing a little bit of that. But let's get
Yeah,
into.
I got my girlfriend into it. Actually, it was really fun
Oh,
with
that's
the
great.
friends play free weekend. I started playing with her. She really liked it. She was laughing her ass off by getting drunk in the boat and puking in her own bucket and throwing it at me. She was having so much fun with that.
That sounds like a good time. Well, we got a few more people to thank, besides the obvious people that are on twitch.tv/OmnicLab as affiliate subs and people giving us bits like Mel Overwatch from the Cavalry. Thank you so much for the 100 bits, Mel. And if you wanted to give us bits or give us a Twitch Prime sub, you can head over to our Twitch feed and do it there. We shout you out on the live show as well as the recorded episodes. Also, some people that we have to thank are those of you that are on patreon.com/omniclab. You guys make the show work. You make everything that we want to do in and out of the show month to month pay for our expenses with regards to making this ship run and helping us get from place to place when we want to go travel and do things. So special thanks to Top Score Solutions, Silver Loki, PS4 Solo, Jan Jinkle, Roger B, Shazir, Krista Playa, Tragic Zach, Lissum, Refire, Matthew Z, and Brenda D with a brand new diamond patron this week, Benny in the Jets. Welcome to the Scientist Omnic squad, and I hope to see many more. I will say this publicly only once, but if you are currently listening to the episode and you are a current patron, please go check your patronage. We had a lot more than normal declined patronages this month, including some of the top and bottom levels. So regardless of your patronage, please go double check your payments. Your credit cards or payments may have been declined. I know that Patreon said that they had a hiccup to us as creators, but it was more of sending us money and not for you guys. So just keep that in mind. Maybe there is that hiccup might have affected you. Please let us know and see if we can help you get some of those things fixed. We are willing to work with you on that. But yeah, that helps pay the bills, get the website maintained, get the Twitch stream and the equipment maintained, as well as any time that we're going to go travel. Andres, you want to read the iTunes reviews for the week? We got 2 of them from the United States.
Sounds good. The first one comes from Encore DB. I can't watch videos during work hours to learn and improve in Overwatch, so being able to listen without video is my only option. These guys are great for filling that specific niche. I highly recommend them for anyone interested in learning more about Overwatch or keeping up to date with the recent patch and events. That's exactly what we're aiming for here. I actually know that a lot of you guys listen to us while you're at work or doing some chores or going out for a run or in your daily commute. Podcasts are amazing for that, and I surely have gotten my fix of video games quite many times while I'm driving through podcasts. And they got me through when you have that itch to play, but you really can't. And the other one comes from Black Arm Tim. Just delightful. Big fan of this podcast. You guys are great at explaining the ins and outs of the strategies discussed. I've learned quite a bit from this podcast and continue to learn each episode. Most excellent podcast. Keep up the good work, my dudes. Thank you so much, Black Arm Tim. I'm glad that you're finding the strategies discussions pretty cool. We enjoy talking about them. We'll talk about them endlessly, as you can tell, because we've been doing this for 2 years and still doing it. So that's what we do here at the lab.
It's almost like we like it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for listening to the episode. If you want to find us, omniclab.com is where you can find anything and everything. I will be also available in a couple tournaments for the Oceanic region if you're playing in Oceanic and a part of the I think it's AAOL or it's something like that. AAOL tournament. I have a team that I'm with subbing for there that I sometimes will play with. And then there's also a team in Ascent. If you know what those tournaments are, you can look them up and maybe I'll be playing in those. Both of the teams are 1-0 currently in their brackets with and without me, respectively. So we're really excited to keep playing. I'm just excited to have a team to play with regularly and have scrims that is in my time zone and relatively decent. So anyways, if you guys want to check those out, I'll try to be better about promoting them on my social media if you're in the zone and want to watch it. If you want to find us, you can find us on Twitter at Omnic Lab. And Andres, what about you? Where can people find you?
If you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me at iPlayGames. You spell it IPLAI Games. I know that I've been kind of lost for a little bit. It's mostly been because I've been so busy with school. I know that I haven't been playing with games with all of you guys that I normally play with games with, and been a little bit out of Twitter for a bit. So hopefully once I finish school this week, I'll be able to get back to my normal routine in the internet life and the gaming life. But it's been a super cool 7 months for me, and I'm super glad that I got to do this, and hopefully some cool things will come from this. So thanks so much for everyone for keeping up with this, and for everyone has reached out for help and communicated with me the desire to share Python code or help me out with all this information. Thank you so much. You guys have been super amazing. I've met some of you guys and talked to some of you. And if you guys still want to reach out, please do, because I've had super amazing interactions with the people who have. So if you want to talk about Python or data analysis or some related topic, coding in general, hit me up.
All right, you can find me on Twitter at the tag not Rob, and that's gonna do it for the show, guys. I'll see you next week. Remember, don't be a lab rat, be a scientist, and be good to each other out there. We'll see you next week. Bye bye.
Johnny.
Thanks to everyone in the chat. Sue too. Glad you finally got to put some faces to the voices. A lot of people say that we don't look anything like we sound like. I don't know how we're supposed to sound though, so hope you're not disappointed. Thank you,
YouTube,
TJ
hit that
Goat, for
subscribe
loving the lab. Yeah, hit that subscribe button, guys.
Thanks, guys.
I have nothing more to teach you. The rest you must learn for yourself.
Mel with the 100
In
bits.
harmony, my student.
What's up, Angry Valhund? Thanks for showing up, man. Bye, guys.